Hey guys, and welcome to a video response video. Basically, the Schlag Daddy from OTRS Central did a video about Chris Benoit. To Hell with Chris Benoit was the title. And I watched the video, and after watching it, it's got me thinking for the past few days now. All the days since I watched the video, when it was first uploaded, watched it, and since then, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about the topic, and it's just bringing back memories from the past. And I feel like doing a video on it, and just a video response about it, about the topic, and about Chris Benoit. So here is my story about the topic. So I'm going to take you back 10 years ago, and I was age 7, okay? I was at school, and I actually used to get bullied at school. Now, I was watching wrestling at the time, the WWE, and 2004 this was 2004. This is when Chris Benoit was really hot, with the WrestleMania 20 and all that. Now, I watched that as a kid. I remember watching WrestleMania 20 as a kid. And I always looked up to Chris Benoit. I saw him as an actual idol to me. When I was 7 years old, I looked at Chris Benoit as an idol, someone who inspired me and made me become more stronger. At age 7, I saw Chris Benoit, and I knew he didn't have the stereotypical look. I knew he was a smaller guy. Especially with Eddie Guerrero as well. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, I knew they were small guys. I understood that. And I could relate to that when I was at school. I really could, because I was a small guy myself. That's why I got bullied. Was because I was small. It's because of my height. And I saw Chris Benoit, and I saw that he was, on the, going towards the championship, the World Heavyweight Championship at the time. And he was going to face Triple H and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 20. I saw that, and I saw him as an underdog. I saw myself as the underdog. I knew I was the underdog because of my height. Okay, I got bullied for my height. But I remember 10 years ago, WrestleMania 20, and I remember Chris Benoit finally winning, and he beat the Triple H and the Shawn Michaels. And I remember as a kid, I was marking out. I really was. I was so happy to finally see Chris Benoit, someone who I really liked and I looked up to. I knew he was a smaller guy. I knew he was the underdog. I could relate to that, And to finally see him win, it was amazing. And as well, after the match, the celebration with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, at age 7, I didn't understand the relationship between them. I obviously do now, the ECW, WCW, and how they travel together. But I saw it was that these were two smaller guys, and they've finally overcome the odds. And at the biggest stage of them all, they are the winners. That's what I saw. And to me, as a small kid, I just marked out. This was fantastic stuff. I remember it, I really do. And I remember being very, very happy. So 10 years ago, I actually got bullied, as I said. And basically, I ended that due to physical reactions. Maybe you could say I watched too much wrestling. But in the end, I had enough of the bullying. I ended up throwing the guy into the radiator. And never again in my life have I been bullied or been touched in a physical way. It's violent manner, it never in my life since that day. You could say I watched too much wrestling, but something when I was a kid, I used to like imitating wrestlers. I still do to this day. But when I did that, I was me. But because I looked up to Chris Benoit, and I knew that he was a smaller guy. I knew he had to overcome the odds, and he was always down here when you had the bigger guys on top. I understood that. And when I responded, and I actually took down the bully, I felt like felt like I was Chris Benoit. You know, it was like he inspired me, and it was like he inspired me, and he kind of like helped me overcome bullying. You know, that's what it was kind of like to me. You know, to me, as a kid, when I was 7, I kind of looked up to Chris Benoit, and I was like, you're the kind of guy who made me stop being bullied. You know, I could relate to him being a smaller guy. And from there, you know, I really looked up to the guy, Chris Benoit, and he was my hero. He really was. At 7, he was my hero. So 3 years later was when the tragic incident happened, and I always remember this day. And I'll always remember hearing the news when Eddie Guerrero died as well, unfortunately. And I remember that day very, very clearly and being very upset over it. Because it was, again, a guy I looked up to. And I could relate to. I always remember Chris Benoit as well, unfortunately. I remember it was, I had school, and I got picked up from my dad after school. You know, I had a pretty decent day and all. And my dad, he's not... He doesn't really like wrestling. He'll say, oh, it's fake and all what. He'll take the mickey and stuff. I know, I guess that's what dads do. You know, I understand that. You know, I think he respects the whole concept of wrestling, you know, the business aspect and all that. You know, it is real in a way, but, you know, he does it to annoy me and stuff. But I always remember, you know, he never took it seriously. But I always remember, he was a lorry driver. He's a lorry driver. And, he picks me up, and he tells me he's got to say something, and he ends up telling me what actually happened, what's been in the news, and that Chris Benoit, he killed his wife, he murdered his son, and took his own life. And I remember my dad saying that, and I know he wasn't joking, you know, he wouldn't say something like that and joke about it. I know that, so he was being deadly serious, but I always remember that moment. And a part of me went missing, you know, and I felt lost, because, again, this was someone who I looked up to. This was someone who, because I got bullied, I looked up to him, I thought, oh, this is a guy I can relate to, an underdog. He's actually overcome the obstacles, and I did it too, and I could relate to him. I loved him. I really did. As a kid, at 7 years old, I loved him. Now, I was about 9 or 10 here when I heard the news, and I remember being really annoyed. You know, I was like, how could you do this? How could you possibly do this? You know, as a kid here, I mean, I didn't understand the psychological ways, and the psychological aspects and what had driven him to do this. You know, now I understand that, but it doesn't justify what he did. Okay? In this Schlag Daddy's video, OTRS Central, I'll also post a link in that description down below if you haven't already seen it. I 100% agree. I really do. Because as a kid I heard this news, I felt let down. This was someone who I always watched, always looked out for. I was always for him. At school, I was always a Chris Benoit guy. You know, you had people at my school, you know, oh, we like Triple H. Shawn Michaels, I really like Shawn Michaels as well. You know, I was one of his guys as well when I was the age. But, you know, you had them saying that, oh, and I was a Chris Benoit guy. And then to then find out the news about what happened, it really upset me. Now, it's a lot of people, I know that. You know, unfortunately, this happened. Now, we know that Chris Benoit was a fantastic in-ring technician. We've also heard from other WWE talents and other people from ECW, WCW. They've said that Chris Benoit backstage was a nice guy, you know. So he was a good talent and a nice guy backstage. But unfortunately, what happened completely dominates what was good. It destroys what was good. Unfortunately, what happened creates a picture, and in my mind, it concludes. It's like a conclusion, you know, and it overthrows what was actually good about him. Unfortunately. Now I understand people will say, you know, he was a good talent and all that. You know, I get it, I do. He was, you know. I wouldn't have been a Chris Benoit fan at 7 if he wasn't. You know, I could relate to him. He was good. But unfortunately what he did could not justify how he was a good person or whatnot. Because at the end of the day, what he did was... It was unhuman. Completely unhuman. You know, and if this was to happen in this day and age, just imagine what would happen. You know, I could give you an example. Hitler, okay, one of the most hated men ever, yeah? You know, what he did was unhuman. Nobody can forgive him for that, for what he did, you know? But, you know, he was, if he didn't do what he did, he would have been a good leader. He was a good talker. He was very good at persuading. I get that. But what he did completely demolishes what he was good at. You know, what he was good at doesn't matter anymore. What he did was ridiculous. Should never have happened. You know, you don't have the right to do that. And it's the same with Chris Benoit. I cannot forgive him. I'm sorry, but I cannot. I watch WWE DVDs, okay? I always watch one every week. You know, just to relive some moments or whatnot. And, you know, when I see Chris Benoit, I can't look at him the same as I can. Because I remember as a kid, when he won a match, I was cheering, I was on my feet. But right now, I can't. I cannot do that anymore. And I will never, ever be able to do that. Chris Benoit took this, you know, something what I can't forgive Chris Benoit for. Remember the ending to WrestleMania 20. WWE can never, ever, and I mean this, they can never, I don't blame them either for it. They can never show that again and highlight how much of an impact that moment made. And how good it was, how special and historical it was. They can't do that anymore because of Chris Benoit. Eddie Guerrero was part of that, and it's been taken away because of Chris Benoit. I cannot forgive him for that. Because I remember as a kid, I watched that. And I was lost for words for it because it was so good. And now that's taken away from me. That is taken away from millions who will watch that. It's taken that away from kids who watched that and saw it as a special moment. It's took that away from everybody, and including Eddie Guerrero. Sorry, Eddie Guerrero was a legend, and it's taken away from him because of Chris Benoit, because of his stupid accusations and his stupid actions. What he did, it's absolutely ridiculous, and you can't justify that. I'm sorry, but you can't, and it pisses me off. Because I remember as a kid, I loved the guy, and I feel let down. So, Stag Daddy, OTRS Central, okay? That video is 100%, is 100%. You know, I agree with it. It's 100% the truth as well. Because, no matter how you say how good Chris Benoit was, good in the ring and backstage and all what he did cannot justify anything. What he did, I can't forgive. I can never forgive because he's took away part of my childhood. He's taken away from. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion, this video response video which I did. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for quite some time now, and I just had to make a video and just talk about it because it's been playing on my mind. It really has. But until next time, guys. See ya.